This week I'm driving the Lincoln Navigator. We'll see if this Navigator is still able to compete against the brand new Cadillac Escalade. Design-wise, the Navigator had a major redesign back in 2018 and made a major impact on the large SUV market. And this is one of the main reasons why Lincoln still exists. This is the best seller by far for the Lincoln brand, especially if you're looking at the US numbers of sales. This is really their bread and butter, we could say. So this Navigator is really important. It made a big statement back in 2018. But now in 2021, we've got some major competition with the Cadillac Escalade and also the GMC Yukon Denali. Some little changes for 2021 for the Navigator. First of all, we have a brand new grille. These are monochrome. They're gonna match the paint of your Navigator. So if you get a white one, it's gonna be white. And if you get a black one, you've got a black grille. I really like that. If we step on the side, we've got some brand new 22 inches wheels, all in gloss black. A really good looking wheel. It really matched well this Navigator. And on the side for 2021, we remove a little bit of chrome. So this part here is going to be also monochrome, same as the rest of the body, I could say. So a little bit less chrome. You know, I'm not a big fan of chrome, but this is a plus. And if we step in the back, there's no exit for the exhaust. You know, I think Lincoln is lacking on the sportiness a little bit, I think, compared to the Escalade and also the GMC Yukon Denali. And also with the rumors of an upcoming Cadillac Escalade V, this Lincoln needs a little bit more spice. So the model I'm driving this week, it's a Navigator, so the short base version. We can also have a longer version with the Navigator L. You know, one thing I noticed really with these older generation of large SUV, it's really the space behind the last row. There's not a lot of space here. That's something GMC and Cadillac has resolved. The new generation of Escalade and Yukons got 6 inches longer than before. So there's no short Yukon and short Escalade anymore. And I think that's just the right sweet spot between too short and too long from my point of view. And you know, when you compare these models with an Aviator or a Cadillac XT6, sometimes these lower trim level models, I could say, they have a little bit more space for the cargo. So I think probably for the next generation of Navigator, it's going to be a little bit longer, just like the Cadillac. Under the hood of this Navigator, we can find a little bit of the DNA of a Ford F-150. We can find a V6 3.5 liter turbo EcoBoost HO, good for 450 horsepower and 510 foot-pounds of torque. This engine is matched to a 10-speed transmission. It's pretty much the same engine we can find under the hood of a Ford F-150 Raptor. So you get a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more torque with the HO EcoBoost. So it's not the typical EcoBoost you'll find in your neighbor F-150. This one's out of dual injection, so port and also direct. That's one of the major difference between HO and non-HO. So more power. So it's a big advantage for the Lincoln. You got the fuel economy of a V6 with the power of a V8. But you know, if we're looking at the GM products, now you can get a diesel. You're not able to get a diesel option inside of the Navigator. So if you're looking for the ultimate fuel economy, there's no diesel available yet for Lincoln. But still, this engine is pretty powerful, and also you can tow up to 8,700 pounds. And these numbers are a little bit better than the GM products. All right, on the road with the Navigator. I know this product pretty well. You know, my dad owned one, same generation, but the L version, so the longer wheelbase. I did a few road trip with it from Montreal to Miami, We went through Nashville and all that. So I drove several thousand kilometers with the Navigator. So I know pretty well these products. And on top of that, I used to work with Ford and Lincoln. I actually launched this generation of Navigator. So now these days, you know, the Navigator, it's still a good product, but the GM products, especially the Cadillac, really step up to another level. So, you know, this week I'm really, you know, comparing these two because really they're head to head to compete for the best large SUVs. And you know, I don't really consider like competing with the Germans and all that. These two are really, you know, head to head. Cadillac and Lincoln, they always been, you know, and I think they're really playing in a different market than the German ones. I think people who consider the Cadillac or the Lincoln, they're a little bit more truck, they're a little bit more practical, a little bit more about towing and all that. That's what we found in those products. And on the road, you know, it's really comfortable. Obviously, it's a Lincoln, but it's not as comfortable as the Cadillac Escalade. The Cadillac's got such a good suspension with the mix of airbags and also the magnetic shocks. It really changed the game. You know, on the road, it's really smooth and you can raise up and lower down the truck. And also you can tighten the shocks with the magnetic. So handling wise, comfort wise, suspension wise, the Cadillac is way superior, but still the Lincoln's got a good ride. And speaking of comfort, we have to speak about those seats. You know, there's millions of ways you can adjust the seats. It can be a plus and minus for some people. You have to make sure to memorize your seat. If someone's gonna mess up with your seat, you can spend at least 5 minutes to configure your seats to the right way. I remember while I was on the road trip with my dad, the way he was setting up his seats, it was not meant for my body type. So we really use those memory seats on this truck. So it's a big plus, but these seats are really nice. They're good looking too. I like the color inside of this Lincoln this week. Speaking of the inside, you know, luxurious, everything looks good. Obviously, you know, the screen, we've got a 12-inch screen. It was cool, you know, back in 2018, but now these days in 2021, the Escalade's got a 38 inches curved screen, a super 4K and all that. Obviously, technology-wise, this Lincoln Navigator is way behind the Escalade, and this is mainly because of different generation. You know, the Escalade is brand new, and probably the next generation of Navigator is gonna step up the game over the Escalade. But obviously, you know, if you're considering those two on the market and you like technology, you know, you're lacking with this system here, especially with the cameras. You know, they don't use completely the screen here. The quality of the cameras is not as high as the one you'll find in the Cadillac. And obviously you have so much tech, you know, in the Cadillac. You got night vision, you got all the super HD cameras. Tech-wise, it's really hard to compare those two. In the last row, it's easy to access that last row. You just have to press a button and it's really easy. You have a good amount of space back there for a last row because of that flat floor. But once again, you know, if you compare this Lincoln to the Escalade is a bit longer than this one, so you get a little bit more space in that last row inside of the Cadillac product. Performance wise, you can do 0 to 100 kilometers in about 6 seconds, pretty much the same time as you can do with the Escalade or the Yukon with the 6.2 liter V8, but you get way much more torque at lower RPM. This is because of the EcoBoost engine. Because of inside of these turbos, you've got that low inertia turbine is going to spool at really low RPM, so you get in almost instant torque at really low RPM, between like 2,700 RPM to 3,500, around that. So you get a lot of torque. It's really fun to drive. You don't have to rev it up and, you know, press hard to get some performance out of your engine. Fuel economy wise, this week I was averaging around 13 liters per 100 kilometers. It's pretty good, you know. This EcoBoost engine can really perform, especially on the highway. on the highway. You can go down easily in the 11 liters per 100 kilometers. It's pretty good. You can do similar numbers with the Escalade, but there's some advantage to get the EcoBoost, you know, especially here in Quebec. When you put your plate on, you've got some luxury tax and also big displacement engine tax. So with the EcoBoost, you don't get that extra, you know, tax compared to an Escalade. Price-wise, the model I'm driving this week is just under $110,000 Canadian. It's pretty load up, you know, everything's pretty much on this Navigator. If we compare it to some of the Escalade I drove lately, these Escalades were more expensive. They were around 120, almost 130 depending on the equipment. So it's a little bit cheaper to go with the Navigator these days, so that's an advantage for the Lincoln products. But you have to remember this one is a little bit shorter, so if you want to get all the advantage from the Yukon or the Escalade, you have to consider maybe a Lincoln L. And also, if you need even more space, you know, you can get the Yukon XL and also the Escalade ESV. These are a bit longer than the Navigator L. So depending what you need to do with your SUV, these trucks, you know, are really practical to do a lot of stuff. But again, you know, the Lincoln's a little bit cheaper than the Escalade if we compare it full equipped to full equipped models. If budget-wise you think these are a little bit too expensive, you can consider also the GMC Yukon Denali. It's going to run you around $95,000 fully loaded. Yes, it's not as luxurious as the Lincoln and the Escalade, but you get pretty much the same kind of truck, same kind of ride, and sometimes a little bit more practical if you want to carry the family. So overall, you know, it's really nice to drive those large SUVs, you know. And again, you know, with time, there's always the latest technology, and that's always a killer for these luxurious trucks. Who's got the latest technology, who's got the biggest screen, who's got the biggest wheels and all that. It's always been the game with the Navigator and the Escalade. But overall, you know, if you're shopping right now in between the Cadillac and the Lincoln, I could say, you know, the Cadillac product is superior for right now. If you really dig those Lincoln products, you might want to wait for the next generation who's going to bring more tech and more design and more luxury stuff. Unfortunately, here in Canada, not like in the US, we don't have the black label models. These are really nice. These really compete with the Escalade. Let me know in the comments, which one do you think is the best large SUV? Is it the Navigator or the Escalade? So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my videos, and we're gonna see each other on the next review.